Today we're going to talk about how to plot polar coordinates. So in this first example we have three different parts to it. A, we want our radius to be greater than 0 and our angle to be between negative 2 pi and 0. And then for part B we want our radius to be less than 0 and our angle to be between 0 and 2 pi. And then for C here, we want our radius to be bigger than 0, and we want our angle to be between 2 pi and 4 pi. Alright, so for part A here, we're going to have, well, for number 1, we'll have the point 5 and 2 pi over 3. So what I'm going to do with this first graph right here is draw the original. Alright, so 2 pi over 3 is, let me get out my unit circle and see where 2 pi over 3 lies, which is right here. So that means I want my angle arrow to be pointing over there. Alright, so there's my 2 pi over 3. Now we also always have our pole, which is at 0, so I'm going to do that in red here. That's 0. So there's 0. And this is my 2 pi over 3. Now, since my radius here is 5, which is a positive number, it goes in the same direction as my angle. So since my angle is going 2 pi over 3 here, I'm going to go up 5. And my point is going to lie right there. That is 5 units away from our center here, our pole, on the 2 pi over 3 angle. So this angle right here is 2 pi over 3. That's the original. So what I want to do for part A is keep my point in that same spot. So my point still needs to lie on this line. Right there. So no matter what I do, that point's always going to be there. Also, my pole is always going to be at 0 here. I'm always going to have this first one pointing at 0. What's going to change depends on what A is, the criteria. So my criteria for A says that the radius has to be greater than 0. Well, if my radius is greater than 0, that means the point is going to be in the same direction as my angle. So my angle is still going to go this direction right here, along this line. And the reason it still goes in that direction is because the radius is still positive. So my point is going to lie on that line again. Now, my angle that I'm actually going to use to get to that point, though, is going to change. And that's going to be based on this criteria right here, negative 2 pi and less than 0. So if I want to be between negative 2 pi and 0, that means I have to have a negative angle, which means I have to go clockwise. So from 0 here, I'm going to go around this direction, however many radians that is. Okay, and to find that, what I can do is just take 2 pi over 3 and subtract 2 pi over 1, and after you get a common denominator, you'll find that that's negative 4 pi over 3. So the point here is at 5 and negative 4 pi over 3. Alright, let's do part B. Again, I'm going to put my point where it belongs. So it's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right here still. I always plot that, and then I always also plot my polar axis 0. So this is at 0 here. That's still at 0. Alright, now the criteria for B says that my radius is less than 0. That means it's negative. So this point is negative according to the angle. So if this is the point, the angle is always the opposite direction if it's negative. If the radius is positive, it's the same direction, which is why in part A here we went the same direction as our point. But since my point's over here and it's a negative point, then the angle is going to go the opposite way. So along this line, the opposite side is right here. So that's going to be my angle, and then this would just be the point out here. But this is my angle because it's a negative angle according to where my point lies, or negative radius, sorry. Now that angle has to be between 0 and 2 pi, so I want a positive angle. To get a positive angle between 0 and 2 pi, I need to go counterclockwise. So starting here, I'm going to go around this way, so all the way around the circle here. That is going to be 2 pi over 3, because 2 pi over 3 gets me to here. And then to get this extra loop right here, that's an extra half of a circle, which is pi. So I'm just going to add pi to this. And after getting a common denominator, it turns out you have 5 pi over 3. So my point is at negative 5 and 5 pi over 3. Again, I just added an extra pi to get around the opposite side here. Alright, part C. Again, my point is in the same spot, so I still have point P here. And then I'm going to graph my axis. At 0. Now my radius is bigger than 0 here for part C. Bigger than 0, which means that my angle is going to point the same direction as my point. So my point is going to lie on this line here. Now, the angle criteria, though, is that the angle has to be between 2 pi and 4 pi. So between 2 pi and 4 pi, that's one whole rotation around. So if I start at 0 here, I have to go around once, and then that extra 2 pi over 3 to get to that point. So that means I take 2 pi over 3, and I add 2 pi this time. And then after getting a common denominator, you end up with 8 pi over 3. So that point is at 5, 8 pi over 3. And that's how you plot polar coordinates.